Welcome. Welcome to IFS-based conflict resolution for healing from addictions, affairs, and ambivalence as to whether someone wants to stay or go. And whether you're joining me live or whether you're listening to the replay, thank you for coming. So let's just take a breath and bring ourselves present. So put your hands on your belly, a big belly breath. Inhale, abdomen out. Exhale, belly button back to your spine. Good. Sometimes just taking one breath quiets our minds and lets us be present in a different way. So what we're going to cover today is how to best help your clients and yourself to heal from all of the issues we talked about or any other issue. My name is Linda Kroll. I've been doing IFS therapy for 35 years. I'm a mediator, an attorney. I'm a certified teacher of meditation, yoga, and Ayurveda. And I bring all that to my practice. And I love sharing what I do with other practitioners and people who could use it. So the fact that you're here today, the fact that you're checking out the replay, I'm truly honored. And I want to make this personal to you. I have 35 years of experience to share with you. I'm going to give you a lot of information, but this is interactive, meaning I want you to put whatever you'd like me to know in the chat to everyone, or if there's something you want me to know personally, put it into a private message, because as long as you're here, I want to make sure you get exactly what you need. So if you feel like putting into the chat why you're here, which of the issues has more relevance for you, addiction, affairs, ambivalence, I'll be happy to talk about all of them. So I'll keep looking at the chat. I'll keep looking at the waiting room to make sure we have people coming in that can get in. But I want to ask you a question. Either if you're a professional, and since I made this for therapists and coaches, I'm going to assume most of you are professionals. On the other hand, you could probably use this for your own benefit as well. So what I'd like to help you do is understand that people come into our office and they often look like this, right? They often look like they're mad as hell and they don't want to take it anymore. They're frustrated with the other party. They're frustrated with someone in their life. And usually they're looking to you to fix it. Or at the very least, they're looking at you to hear their story. And I'm going to give you a few tools today that will make a difference either in your first session with a new client or your next session with a client that you have now. Because I wrote the book, Compassionate Mediation, How to Add Passion to Your Marriage or Compassion to Your Divorce. And Dick Schwartz, who's the originator of IFS, says, divorce brings out the worst in us and often leaves lasting scars. It's on the back of the book. Linda is a master at lifting couples out of their narrow perspectives. They then learn the larger lessons from their relationships and proceed based on the best interest of all involved. This is relationship healing at its best. I thank Dick Schwartz not only for the endorsement, but for the 35 years that I've studied IFS, taught it at conferences, and been a member of the IFS community. If you're familiar with IFS, this will add new tools. If you're not familiar with IFS, I'm going to introduce it to you like I introduce it to all of my clients. And when I have someone that comes to my office, I'm often not sure why they're coming. In other words, because I do individual counseling, couples counseling, divorce mediation, this process that I'm going to teach you today works with individuals, works with couples, works with ambivalent couples, works when there's been an affair, works when there's addiction. Because what we're doing is helping our clients get to their best self, capital S self. And what does self mean? Well, in internal family systems, in IFS, Dick talks about 8 qualities of self: calm, clear, connected, curious, creative, confident, courageous, a couple more. I always add grateful, because I feel if someone's grateful, they're more in self. So whether there's been an affair, whether there's an addiction, whether someone is not sure whether to stay or go, the facts aren't as important as helping each party get to self. And I do that in my first session. So I'm going to tell you how that first session goes, and then I'm going to speak specifically to the different issues: affairs, addiction, ambivalence. No matter who comes to my office, an individual or a couple, they get the same 45-minute interview. And the reason they do is because I have found that if I give them my templated process, which I also give to the people that I train, and we'll talk about that later, it's a set of questions that helps me get a big picture. Now, usually when someone comes to my office or to your office, because they've been on a backlog of anger, resentment, fear, judgment, hurt, they truly want you to just listen. So I'll do that for about 5 minutes. And then I will suggest to them that I could listen and I would like to listen to anything they want to tell me. But if I just listen for 45 minutes, they're going to walk out feeling marginally better because I've listened, but they won't get a different perspective. So if they're open, I have a few questions for them. And here are the questions. Ready? First question I ask is if they have any questions about me. And if you have any questions about me, put them in the chat. I'd be happy to answer them. Basically, I am a IFS therapist for 35 years. I became a mediator. I'm an attorney. I studied at the Chopra Center for 5 years to become a teacher of meditation, yoga, and Ayurveda. And for all these years in my practice, I have templated the process that I use because I know it works. And my handouts, my videos, my scripts, my meditations are things that I give to other practitioners so that you can use them in your practice now. And I'm going to give you some today so you get a taste of what I mean. So I ask them if they have any questions about me. If it's an individual, I go into this interview. If it's more than one person, I talk to each of them at a time. And I usually talk to the person who did not call me. So if the wife called me, then I'll talk to the husband first. I used to have a waiting room where someone was in the waiting room. Now I'm on Zoom always, so I'll put the other person in the waiting room. And I ask each of them these same questions. Here we go. How can I help is really the first one. Are they looking to have a better relationship? Are they looking to talk about a divorce? What is their goal in meeting with me? And then I ask, what does the other person do that bothers you? And I take notes. What do you do in response? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? And then I ask, if I were talking to your partner, who might be in session and might not be in session, but just to get a perspective, if I were talking to your partner, what would your partner would say that you do that bothers him or her? And then what do they do? How do they feel? So I ask a couple questions about that because I'm listening for what triggers them, how they react in their different parts. And I'll explain self in parts in just a minute. And then I ask about their family of origin, which is always important. And it's a very brief question of, tell me about your mother, tell me about your father, very briefly. How many siblings do you have? Where were you in the birth order? Was there any drinking? Was there any family secrets? This can take about a minute. And I'm writing a little genogram on my notes: mom, dad, siblings, addiction, secrets, first child of many, last child. And in my head, I'm getting a framework for what did they learn growing up. And then in the same 15-minute session with them, I say, tell me about the other party's family of origin. And again, I might just be seeing the individual. Their partner may never come in, but I still want them to have a perspective of what the other person's family life was like. Because sometimes when they recognize, oh, well, his father was an alcoholic and his mother worked all the time and he was the baby of the family, they get a different perspective of no wonder he doesn't know how to empathize. No wonder he masks his feelings. And with that comes more compassion. And then I ask the magic wand question, which is, if you had a magic wand, what would you like to see happen? And sometimes they'll say, I would love to, change him or her, which is not going to happen, but they can change how they relate to him or her. And sometimes they say, I really want to heal the relationship and move on. And other times they say, I really want to get divorced. I don't know how. I don't want to fight. And so I'm getting the GPS for each of them. Are they on the same page? Do they want to create a new relationship? And when you've had an affair, when there is addiction, when there is ambivalence, this is still the same process, because you're getting an overview of who each of them is and what they each want to be. And if you don't mind muting yourself, if you're not muted, that would be great. So I've asked them a question, and then I ask each of them if they have a word for spiritual. And the reason I ask them that is because whatever they say, and I don't mean religious, I don't care if they go to church or temple, I'm really asking, do they have any belief system that's outside of their ego? Is it God, nature, universe, higher self? Because that's the word I will use with each of them to talk about what self really means. So when we're talking about self, we're talking about that essence inside of us that is calm, clear, compassionate. So then if I have one person, after the interview, I go into this blurb, which I'm going to give you. And if I have both people, I put them back together and I say, thank you both for all you shared. And I've basically done 10 or 15 with each. I have an overview of where they're each coming from. And then I explain self in parts. And I'm going to show you my handout in a little bit, but I don't usually use it with them. So here's what I tell them. I say that I have a blurb that I give everyone, and it takes about 2 minutes. Is it okay if I give you my blurb? They say yes, they know they're in for 2 minutes. Okay, here it is. I believe we all have a healthy self. And when we're in self, we're calm, clear, and compassionate. You know those moments? They're usually just moments because we're not in self very much. We're in parts that we exile, parts that we manage with, and parts that we get extreme with. So if we learned in childhood that it wasn't safe to be scared or sad or hurt, and sometimes not safe to be angry, we push that aside. And those are the ultimate, what about me? Who's ever going to care for me the way I need? That's our inner child parts that we exile. And instead we go out and we manage. And we manage by being nice, pleasing, caretaking. Some people are judgmental, hardworking, stoic. But many people put on what I call a pseudo self, where you want to look like you're in self, calm, clear, compassionate, but you're really feeling some of those exiled feelings of pain or sadness, and you don't know what to do with them. So when the managers can't contain those exiles, out come what IFS calls firefighters. I call them extreme parts. And those extreme parts numb us. We eat too much, drink too much, get enraged, have a panic attack, get depressed, decide we want to get divorced, go have an affair. Sometimes an affair is an extreme behavior because you can't manage the feelings that you're feeling because you haven't unburdened the exiles. So then I used the stories that they have told me in the interview that I did with them to make it personal. So Mary, you came from a family where there was addiction. You learned how to be codependent. And John, you came from a family where your father was gone all the time and you didn't learn how to communicate. And you both did the best you could. And now you're here because you didn't learn how to communicate. And John had an emotional affair at the office, or that's what you believe. I want to help you talk about everything. I want to help you talk about the fear, the sadness, the hurt, the anger. And as I'm talking to Mary and John, I'm saying, so as I mention all these feelings, what's happening to you? Are you relaxing or are you tensing? And they tell me they're tensing. So then what I do is a 5-minute, 4-minute meditation that I'm not going to do right now, but I'm going to show you how to access it later to get to self. And no matter why they've come to me, sometimes 2 people are done. They're coming for mediation only. They want no woo-woo. They want no therapy. They just want to do this. They just want to get it over. But the problem isn't deciding who's getting the kids and what they're doing about the house and the asset division. The hardest part is getting them to self, to helping them learn how to compassionately communicate. And here are the 4 aspects of compassionate communication. The first one is connect to your best self. And what does that mean? Okay, how do you get to that place where you are calm? Do you meditate? Do you pray? Do you go for a walk in nature? Do you do your own therapy? How do you connect to your best self? Because most people aren't in their best self. In a regular relationship, for sure, but when there's been addiction and an affair, they are not in their highest self. They are reactive. They are angry. They are hurt. They are judgmental. You get the picture. But being compassionate starts with being compassionate with themselves, connecting to their best self and learning how to acknowledge that they are human. They have a right to be angry, but learning how to speak for their anger instead of from their anger keeps the other person involved in communication so they can talk about everything. And I often say that having the courage to talk about an ending can create a new beginning. Because if you do any work with individuals and couples, you realize that even in the middle of marriage counseling, one or both isn't totally invested in marriage counseling. In their head, they've got one foot out the door. They're thinking, well, what if we separated? They've envisioned what it would be like. But because they can't talk about it, they're not fully present. So what I teach in compassionate mediation and what I do with my clients is make all parts welcome, including the parts that have thought about leaving. So I'll get back to the addiction, the affair, and leaving in a minute, but let me give you the other pieces of compassionate communication. First one is connect to your best self. Number two, let go of your limiting beliefs and judgments. And that's where they learned in childhood. What are the stories they're telling themselves, about their partner? Oftentimes in situations, a partner isn't as angry at their partner as they are at themselves. Why did I stay? Why didn't I leave sooner? So letting go of their limiting beliefs and judgments, their filters through which they're judging the other person, the walls that they built around their heart, you want to help them do that. And you do that by step 3, helping them unburden pain from the past. And in my compassionate mediation training, I use all my IFS skills, plus my higher consciousness, plus a lot of other unburdening techniques to help you help them heal the pain from the past, either their long past from when they were a child or even the past in the relationship, because they can start over if they want to, and you can help them. So connect to your best self, let go of your limiting beliefs, unburden pain from the past. And the fourth is relate from your heart. And that is paramount. And I often share that I was married to my college sweetheart. We were married at 22. We were married for 20 years. And when it looked like our relationship was headed for divorce for different reasons, I was already a lawyer. I became a mediator thinking I could mediate my own divorce, which is not a good idea. It's like delivering your own baby. Maybe it's possible, but you really don't want to do it. And then I became a therapist. I found I got my LCPC, found Dick Schwartz, Self in Parts spoke to me. And I put it all together because when I was getting my own divorce, it was long, it was painful. We were separated for a very long time. And there was nothing like compassionate mediation where you could go to an expert and talk about everything, to learn how to compassionately communicate, to heal the wounds from the past, and then to talk about, well, what would it look like if we decided to separate? What are our assets? What would we do about the children? What would we do about the house? So because there was no one like that at the time, we went to marriage counseling that didn't really work. We weren't really ready to finish the divorce, so we were separated for about 10 years. And then when we finally got divorced, and it was painful, very painful for everybody, I told myself there had to be a better way. And then I created it. I used the IFS training, the mediation, the law, the spiritual coaching, and I put together a program that combines emotional and spiritual healing along with legal and financial information and support. And for those of you who would like to learn more, I would love to share that with you because my compassionate mediation coaching certification is starting its 6th cohort soon. It's a very small group where I work with very few people to take you from where you are in your practice to where you'd like to be and give you all of these skills, handouts, worksheets, templates, and mentoring. So we can talk more about that. I don't want this to be a sales page. I just want you to know that it's there. And to get it, you can go to lindakroll.com roadmap/roadmap. And I'm going to put this in the chat right now. Hold on. Linda Kroll, I'm trying to copy it, but it's not showing me. lindakroll.com/roadmap gets you the roadmap of this process that I'm talking about and also gives you an invitation to sign up for a 15-minute chat with me so I can mentor you wherever you are. And if certification feels like a fit, we can schedule some time to talk about it. But in the 15 minutes that we talk, I can give you the benefit of any questions answered that you want to ask me. And I'll also tell you how to get the guided meditation. If you go to lindakroll.com/CCC, don't go there now, but go there later, you'll get the guided meditation that I do to help people take a breath, do some belly breaths, ground themselves, bring up some nurturing energy from the earth, let it flow to the crown, out to the sky, bring down from the sky, higher power, nature, universe, God, bring down compassion, to breathe even bigger than themselves. So they surround themselves with this calm, compassionate energy of self and focus that compassion inward. Start at the top of your head, scan your body to the soles of your feet, and just notice. Notice your tension. Notice your thoughts and feelings. And let these parts notice you. And then I take them on a journey down a path to a mountain where they separate from their parts, go up in self as high up the mountain as they want. And from that place, look at the other party at the top of their mountain without all of their parts attached. And as much as they can, send compassion in that direction. So just imagine what happens when two people are guided in that way. So they get a felt sense of being contained in an environment that's safe, where they can begin to forgive themselves and each other for whatever they did or didn't do, because they recognize that they've done the best they could according to their level of awareness. And when they have that perspective, the energy shifts. And I even have a handout on empathy that I give them, where they learn how to speak for their pain and their sadness. They learn how to listen. They learn how to understand. They learn how to make amends. And they learn how to make decisions for their future. And sometimes the decision for the future involves a separation or a divorce. I was talking to a therapist who took me up on the roadmap call, the 15-minute call, and he was saying that he was working with some clients for a year. And at the end of that year, they decided to get divorced, and he felt like he had failed. And I told him I wished he had had the tools, because he knew that the wife wasn't really into it. She was just there to kind of soften the blow, to get her husband ready to understand what they were talking about, that they wasted a whole year. Because a professional, a coach, or a therapist who has these skills, and by the way, my training gives continuing education credits too, so I'll put that in there while I'm thinking of it. But when you have this training, you are confident that you can talk about everything. And you normalize the parts that are ambivalent. You normalize that in a relationship, one or both people from time to time have thought about what it is to leave. So let's talk about it. But you don't have to decide. You don't have to decide, I'm done, let's get divorced. Nor do you have to decide, I don't want to talk about divorce, I'm going to do marriage counseling. And I tell two people who are often ambivalent together, or one wants the separation, the other one doesn't. I tell the one who wants it, the initiator, that they have to be willing to talk about emotions, because otherwise their partner will stop coming. They won't want to talk about it. They'll just leave, and then they'll have to file for divorce and the courts get involved. So the initiator has to make room to process the feelings. And I tell the party who wants to stay, you have to be willing to talk about what an ending would look like. Because if your partner isn't fully committed and it just starts to feel like marriage counseling again, they're going to leave. They're going to file for divorce, and the lawyers will take over. Then you won't have any conversation. So when you learn compassionate mediation, when you learn these skills, you become the forum to give them the content that they need to talk about, because I give it to you. What are their options? How do you deal with legal issues? And then you help them with the process. And that can go on for weeks and months and often years, because you become the expert. You become the expert on how to navigate this ambivalence, how to heal from an affair, what to do about addiction, and then you help them along the way. And if they want to talk about a separation or divorce, I give you the tools to give the information to them. But then any piece of information leads to weeks and months of processing. For instance, when you're thinking of separating or divorcing because your partner's had an affair and you don't want to forgive him or her, or addiction is rampant and no help is in the future because they refuse to get help, then you need to talk about, then what would it look like if you separated? And when you even bring up the subject of finances, you get an emotional meltdown. You don't have to be a financial advisor. You don't have to be an attorney. You don't have to be a mediator. You have to be someone who holds space for the conversation. And when you talk about money and when you talk about roles and responsibilities and who knows what, meaning who knows where the money is, who knows where the income is, who knows where the debts are, and you create a forum where people can talk about this, but as they're talking about everything, thanks, Marcia, as they're talking about everything, you hold space for compassionate communication. You help them get to self. When one of them is anxious or angry, you stop the content and you process it. You process it together with empathy, or you process it alone. And when I see my couples clients, I see them together, but when I see them together, I see them alone for at least 5 minutes at the beginning of each session. And I also give them an opportunity to meet with me alone to help them unburden and bring more self-energy into the situation. So I'm going to take a breath and see what questions there are, and then I have more. So put your questions in to me or in the chat. Is this making sense? I can see some of your faces. So far, so good? Okay, good, great. Then I'll continue. All right, so let's talk about what the title was about. Thanks, Al. IFS skills to use. And the reason I do that is because, like I said, getting to self is the key. Helping them get to the space where they have room to have compassion for themselves, to talk about their feelings, to listen with empathy. Then you can bring any subject up. And when you do that, it gives their partner a chance to see them without their walls, without their judgments, without their defenses, without their accusations, and truly create something new. So often when I've taken someone down the miracle of empathy sheet, where I have person A talk about their exiled feelings, their hurt and their sadness, not their judgments, not you betrayed me. Okay, that's a judgment. It makes the person that had the affair a perpetrator. It's I'm hurt. And the other party has to listen. I hear you say how hurt you are. I understand how hurt you are. And often coaching them to say they understand is a big key. Because oftentimes when people do something where I was like, I'm sorry, I said, I'm sorry, get over it. When are you going to get over it? And there's no real understanding. So even if they're there reading down the page and the other party's saying, well, they're just reading down the page, I remind them, yes, but they're here reading down the page. So let's give them the benefit that they're learning empathy. So they repeat the words. I hear you say that when I spoke to the other woman too often, you were hurt. They don't defend it. They don't rationalize it. They don't explain it. They just listen from their higher self at the top of the mountain. And they say, I hear you say how hurt you are. I understand how hurt you are, and I'm sorry. I want to create a new relationship. I don't want to make you feel that way, and I'm sorry. And then the party who's been betrayed says, thank you. So in the future, and then she says in the future, or he says, I don't want you to ever see him or her again. I want to look at your phone, etc. But when there's been an affair, there are 3 things that need to happen on both sides. And I tell my clients this. The party who's had the affair, and it can be an emotional affair, and sometimes an emotional affair is even more hurtful than a physical affair because it can often be deeper. And they'll say, I didn't have sex with that woman, but that's not the issue. The issue is that they had a connection, and the connection is what hurts their partner. So the person that has betrayed their partner has to be willing to end the relationship. Sometimes they have to leave their job, end the relationship, be transparent for as long as needed, give them the phone, let them know where they'll be, and be willing to, quote, be in the doghouse for as long as it takes for the other party to forgive them. Okay, so that's the betrayer. The person who has felt betrayed has to do 3 things too. They have to be willing to look at what was their contribution to the relationship before the affair happened. It didn't happen in a vacuum. So if they're just going to make the other party the perpetrator and them the victim forever, that's not going to work. So they have to be willing to look at what they did and how they reacted and responded. They have to be willing to forgive at some point. And they have to show up with as much compassion as possible. Now, does that mean they don't have anger to process and all distrust? Absolutely. And you create a forum where they can talk about it. But affairs can be healed and hearts can be stronger in the broken places, and you can help them. So that's affairs. Let's talk about addiction. Addiction is its own set of problems. And when there is addiction, my refrain is Al-Anon and AA, because the party who is addicted really needs to go to AA. And the party who is living with the addict or separated from needs to go to Al-Anon. And I can't reiterate it enough. In fact, recently there was a couple and they were struggling and they were looking at a divorce, and it was going to be an ugly divorce because he was coming from, if she doesn't take my offer, then you did, you know how it goes, just refrain. And for weeks and months, I did suggest that he go to AA and she go to Al-Anon. And at one point he asked me if I get a toaster oven for sending people to AA, because I was so adamant that he needed to go. He thought I was a salesperson for AA. But when he finally got there, his life is changing. They're still getting divorced, but they're doing it with compassion. And he's realizing that his ability to make amends is how he's showing up in this divorce, with compassion, with kindness, with honesty. And she has to do her own Al-Anon because she has lots of reasons to be angry, furious. But at Al-Anon, you help separate the disease of addiction from the person. You can have compassion for the person that's ill and set boundaries with the disease, including leaving the relationship. But you do it with compassion. And I think now is a good time to read you the settlement prayer that I wrote for my husband the night before we got divorced. And I read it I gave it to him and his attorney at our divorce proceedings. And to his attorney's humorous credit, he said to me, here, Pete, is there anything you want to change on this? But he didn't. And this was the prayer that I did. I also wrote it as an intention, but it kind of sets the stage. When there has been addiction, when there has been affairs, and I didn't put abuse, but let me talk about abuse. If there's abuse, get out. Okay, emotional abuse is something that people can deal with. But when there has been abuse, help someone find a way to get out. So if you're coming late, if you're just joining me, we're talking about how to bring our best self and help our clients bring their best self into a situation where they can compassionately communicate, where they can connect to their best self, let go of their limiting beliefs and judgments, unburden pain from the past, and relate from their heart. And if there's been an affair, people can heal if they're willing to forgive and look at what caused it and be transparent. If there's addiction, get to Al-Anon or AA. If there's abuse, emotional abuse, sadly, is very rampant. So teaching someone how to walk out, if that's the situation, find a hotel to go to and teach their spouse that it's no longer okay. But if there's physical abuse, help them get to a safe place. That needs to be addressed exactly. But I was about to read my settlement prayer that I gave to my estranged husband on the day we got divorced. And I've given it to other clients of mine. And it says, I pray for a peaceful and respectful settlement meeting in which all parties come together from the highest selves and their truest connection to your wisdom, guidance, and love. I pray that the parts of ourselves that are angry, fearful, revengeful, retributive, punitive, unloving, unforgiving, sad, young, abandoned, resentful, negative, hurting, and hurtful, that all these parts be quelled with the leadership of the self, coming from a place of trust in your presence and light. I pray for compassion, forgiveness, gratitude, and appreciation. Although our marriage has come down to a business closing of money and asset division, I ask that we remember the love that brought us together and the wonderful children which our union has borne. For their sakes, as well as our own, we wish to put an end to this process in as respectful and loving a way as possible. Although we each carry our sadness and pain and mutual regrets, I pray that we can look beyond this difficult period to a time when we can be friends and coexist peacefully. I pray that our once intact family can be rearranged to two intact and loving homes where our children feel connected and comfortable. I pray that we can hold in a different light the love that once joined us forever, that on the deepest level we wish each other well as we let go and let God direct our lives. For the sake of all we once had and for all we had planned to share together, let us now finalize the terms of our marital dissolution so that we are both free to get on with our lives. Let us complete this last painful task with a sense of trust in the love we once shared and hopefully can remember after this part is over. Let us not work from purely simple and self-serving motives, but keep in mind the general welfare of each of us and our children. Let us request our attorneys to contribute what is needed for the mutual benefit of all concerned. In the end, let us know that we behave civilly, that we can look back with a clear conscience, and that as much as we could, we came from our hearts. God bless us and direct us all. Amen. So I've also written that as an intention, and I share it with my clients because they need to know that if there's been an affair, if there's addiction, if they're ambivalent, when they learn how to compassionately communicate, and they communicate about everything, including what an ending would look like. I always say that families need not be broken, but can be peacefully and respectfully restructured. And often I think many people leave when they could stay, and they stay when they should leave, but they don't know how. And that's what I want to train other therapists and coaches to do. I am going to be 78. I'll pause for reaction. And so I am reaching the end of my daily practice. And my legacy is to take everything that I have learned in 35 years in templated, outlined video format. I've created the Compassionate Communication Academy. And on that, I have several courses, including compassionate communication, compassionate mediation coaching certification. And like I said, I'm going to take 6 to 10 people starting next month. And we meet every other week for 2 hours where you learn the skills that I'm talking about. You get all the documents, the templates that are there and the videos. And then we also practice these skills. So we practice the initial interview. We practice the meditation. We practice whatever you need to practice to help you feel mentored from wherever you are to wherever you need to be. And you can get there by going to lindakroll.com/roadmap. You can get the outline of the process, but it also will take you to a schedule where we can just chat for 15 minutes, where you'll have me all to yourself. If you're not interested in the certification, that's okay. I would just love to be able to answer your questions personally. So I'm going to take a few minutes and take a few breaths and see what you want to put in the chat. And if anybody wants to come forward and actually talk with me, I would love it. I would love it. That's why I'm doing these Zoom calls, so we can actually interact. So raise your hand or unmute yourself or put something in the chat. Whatever feedback you'd like me to get, whatever question you have, a takeaway that was helpful. Please, I see your lovely faces and your lovely names. So you don't have to, but the invitation is there. Anyone? Okay. Oh, Jan, great. Come on up, Jan. Unmute yourself. There you go. There's Jan.
Hi, everyone. I apologize. I'm driving, but I just could not help but just to comment that I have, number one, I love Linda, and there's no coincidences that God brought us into the space with each other. But I recently completed level 1 of the compassionate mediation, and the experience that our group had was, I think sometimes we overuse the word powerful, but it was such a powerful experience beyond my wildest dreams. And I've already started practicing the tools that Linda has taught us. And it's such a wonderful program. And it really has changed my perspective in so many ways. And I'll end with this, that I'm a recovered alcoholic. I just celebrated 17 years the other day, been married for 51 years. And just from going through the program and just seeing a change in just myself and my relationship with my husband, and also just being able to help others in the recovery world, that this is an opportunity. And I'm not here to sell anything for Linda, but it was such an experience that you don't want to miss if you have the opportunity. Thank you for letting me share that.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. There was no paid advertisement, but I'm so blessed that you were here. And also, Jan is taking what she learned, and she and another participant are doing a workshop soon. So Jan, send me that information so I can promote it for you. Because when you get the information, my goal is that you take it and use it however you'd like to. And what's your workshop going to be on, Jan? Self-love? I think you took yourself off mute, but you'll send it to me and I'll send it out to people to let you know. So it really is an opportunity to just take what I have and use it how you'd like. And it's not just me, it's the other people in the group. It's an amazing group of people from around the world who are all heart-centered, who all have some spiritual awareness, who are all open to learning and sharing and growing, no matter how full their practice is. And I'd love for you to learn more if you'd like to. So because you're here, I'll show you my dolls because they're right here. Okay. And I can also show you some of the pages I was going to show you. So we all have an inner child, right? There we go. And when there's been an affair, addiction, ambivalence, people often so we exile this hurt, sad feelings, and we manage, forgive the gender bias. Guys often try to look cool, right, and cover their feelings and manage that way. And girls often get codependent. This was my codependent doll. I bought her this way. She looked exhausted when I bought her. She used to say, "I love you," when you pushed her stomach. She doesn't anymore. She's too tired. Anyway, we often get codependent and try to take care of everybody else. And then when we don't get our needs met, we get mad. Okay. And we fight. And that's how they may come to your office, or that's how you may meet them. Or instead of getting mad, they just may go have an affair, or they may go have a drink, or they may do something to numb. So what you do is you learn the skills to help them thank their parts for how they've been trying to protect them, unburden the old messages and the ways they thought they had to be in the world, and teach them how to speak for their pain and their hurt and their fear in ways that the other person can hear without blame and judgment, and then create a new relationship together. And you do that by giving them the tools. And just to review, one of the handouts for you to look at is my self in parts one, and it's just a review of what I said. When we're in self, calm, clear, compassionate, courageous, confident, curious, creative, connected, I add grateful. And the parts, we exile these parts. What about me, our inner child? We manage with a lot of different parts, our pseudo self, our mind, our ego, all the ways we're managing and trying to see the world based on how we were brought up. And we get extreme, and addiction and affairs are at the top of the list, just coincidental, because they numb, people numb that way, and they're reactive. And sometimes when people decide from here, get me divorced, you want to help them heal, so that if they choose to get divorced, they do it in the way that my settlement prayer or settlement intention invites them. So in the course membership, I have all of my templates. I have all the information, and I would love to share that with you. So I'm going to stop and make sure you don't have any other questions. If you're listening to the replay, if you had to come late, leave early, or just starting at the top, please reach out to me with any questions that you have. I'm really thrilled that you're here. I'm thrilled that you stayed. It's a passion of mine to share this information. I am so grateful to IFS. And when I studied at the Chopra Center, we talked about levels of consciousness. And just briefly, I will address that. There's 7 layers of consciousness: sleep, dream, wake, transcendent, cosmic, divine, unity. So when we're sleeping, we still hear that the baby wakes us up. When we're dreaming, we wake up and realize we were dreaming. When we're waking, that's the way everybody walks around in our human condition, getting triggered, getting reactive. Transcendent is where transcendental meditation came in, where you start to meditate, where you have access to the soul messages, your spiritual messages, your higher self. That's the term transcendental meditation. So you're operating at a slightly higher level of consciousness. The more you meditate, goes into cosmic consciousness, where you can bring that quiet center back into your daily life. Again, bring more self-energy to whatever's happening around you, affairs, addiction, ambivalence. And divine consciousness says that in everyone is God or oneness. And unity consciousness says we're all one. So as we bring more higher consciousness, as we bring more self-leadership, as we take care of ourselves, I'm going to end there, but that's where we should start. Start with your own self-care. Start getting the mentoring you need. Start being part of a community where you feel supported. Because being a therapist, being a coach is a lonely job. I mean, sometimes I feel like a human liver. I'm talking to two people that are so angry and I have to translate to talk to the other. I feel like I've just, kind of thrown everything through my system. So energetically, you have to get the support you need to take care of yourself. And I always say love is the answer, even for people in affairs, addictions, and ambivalence, but it starts with loving yourself. It starts with you loving yourself as a practitioner, and it starts with you helping each of your clients, whether they're coming to see you individually or as a couple. And oftentimes people come in and they're not even talking about their relationship. They're depressed. They have an eating disorder. They're anxious. But those are just extreme behaviors because they don't want to take a look at their relationship. They think if they take a look at their relationship, they're going to have to leave it. Black and white thinking. But if you have the skill set of compassionate mediation, you make it comfortable to talk about everything. And I've spent 35 years putting this all together. I would love to share it with you. So I'm not going to keep you much longer. I'm going to take a quick look to see who has anything else they want to share. Please do. Anyone want to put into the chat a takeaway? Anything? And if not, I'm giving you my thumbs up. You gave me some smiles and thumbs up before. So thank you. From the bottom of my heart, it's my passion to share this. I used to do it on LinkedIn Lives, and it was me talking to a green dot. And maybe people would check out the replays. Maybe people would be live, but I so appreciate your being here and letting me see your faces, see your names, see your reactions. And I hope this is just the beginning. So lindakroll.com, I'm going to put it in the chat, www.lindakroll.com/roadmap. Go get that, and then we can chat. And www.lindakroll.com/CCC. That's got the guided meditation in it. It will be sent to you in your email. It's got a relationship assessment in it in case you want to offer that to your clients on how to look at how much self-energy they're bringing, how much compassion they have for themselves, what do they know about finances. So much I want to offer you. We did it in how long? 48 minutes. To be continued. I'm sending my love, and from my heart to yours, let's do that. Fortunately, it's Valentine's Day, so I got all this stuff ready. All right, I love you. Thanks again. Stay connected, and we'll talk again soon. Jan, thanks for your testimonial. I really appreciate it. Love to all of you. Bye for now. Thank you, Rico. Bye-bye.